All right, guys, so we are going to get back to our perspective drawings. I know we kind of had a break there when we practiced it because I was out sick and I wanted to make sure I would be able to be live to answer questions for you guys when we did this. So you need to get a blank piece of white paper. We cannot use line paper for this. You need a blank paper. You cannot have other lines running through this or it will mess with your perspective. So you need it going horizontally. I would recommend at least like a printer size piece of paper or larger. If it's bigger, it may actually make it a little easier for you. So if you have larger paper, but a size that's just like a printer sheet of copy paper, that will work well. You're going to need a pencil and you are going to need a straight edge. A ruler is definitely going to be best, but if you don't have one, you can use the edge of a book or something else. First thing we're going to do, starting this off, I'm going to zoom in a little bit so the paper is really the star of the show here, and we are going to create our horizon line. So our step between where the land and the sky is. We need a lot of sky for this. So we're going to have our horizon line actually a little lower down on the paper. Please make sure it is going horizontal. We don't want it at a diagonal like this. We want it to go straight across horizontally. I would use at least 2 fingers to kind of hold, it's kind of hard to see right there, but at least 2 or your hand to kind of hold that in place. And then I'm actually going to bring it up just a little bit higher. And I'm going to draw my line. A good way to make sure your line is truly horizontal is make sure the edge of your ruler or your straight edge also lines up with the edge of your paper. Draw your line across. Now, once we have our horizon on here, now this is our ground, this is our sky. We are going to place our vanishing points on the very end. So just a little dot on each end of the line so that the 2 sides to our building are going to vanish to those. So next we're going to start on the box that's going to be our tree house. So this is going to be the actual house of it that tree is going to be holding up into the air. First thing we're going to do is start with our vertical line. Now we want our vertical line, I would say it needs to be at least about 3 inches long. If it's too short, you're going to have such a small house, it's just not going to be worth it. And we don't want it to quite go all the way up to the top of the paper. We want to leave a little room up there. So I'm going to go through, I'm going to make my vertical line has to be straight up and down. I'm going to make mine about 3.5 inches long, but I also don't want it to get too close to the horizon because I want to have some space to draw my tree that's going to be holding it up. As is, I'm going to have kind of a short little tree that's holding it up, but I really want my house to be the focus of it. If you want a little bigger of a tree, you might want to make that line just a little bit shorter. And then I'm going to draw a line from the bottom of this line to each vanishing point and from the top to each vanishing point. All right, so once I have this kind of big triangle looking shape, these are both the sides of my building. And I need to decide how big my building is. Is it going to be really big and be like warehouse size? Is it going to be a little smaller? And I need to draw a vertical line. This is where I see the most people mess up. Instead of getting right vertical up and down, they kind of end up putting it at a little bit of an angle because it feels like a really nice straight line, but it has to be vertical. You need to make sure it is that straight up and down. So remember, always check the top of your ruler, line it up with the top of your paper to make sure it's vertical. And then I'm going to draw that vertical line down in between those 2. And I'm going to do the same thing on the other side. I'm going to make mine more of a rectangle than a cube. So this side of my building is going to be a little larger than the other side of my building. Once I have that in there, the last thing I still need, because I have the 2 sides, and since I'm looking up at my building, I'll see the bottom, but I won't necessarily really see the top of the box too well. So I have to add the bottom here. And so what I'm going to do for that is I need to connect, since I'm drawing the bottom of the box, I have to connect the bottom of both of these lines to each vanishing point. Now the bottom of this line already connects to that vanishing point. So now I need to do it to the side on the opposite, and then I'm going to do the same thing over here. All right, so now I have my box, and I just need to get rid of these extra orthogonal lines out here, these extra little pieces, because I don't need those. Those, the rest of the way, are kind of going to be considered imaginary lines. So I'm going to go back in. I'm going to erase those, but I need to leave the horizon line. So do not erase the horizon, just the orthogonal lines at the diagonal going out. Do the best you can. If you need to touch up a little bit, that's all right. So we have our box, and next we are going to start working on, I'm just touching up where I accidentally erased a little too much. We are going to start working on our tree coming down from that. Alrighty, so now that we have our box, we're heading down to start adding our support from underneath. So for this tree house, if we are drawing a regular tree, I'm going to show you how to do that. However, if you would rather draw something other than a tree holding up your house, like you could do a giant cactus or something like that, a different type of plant, you could do that as well. But I'm going to show you guys kind of like a big oak tree that this tree house would be in. So the way I'm going to do that is coming from underneath the house here. I'm going to zoom in so you guys can see up close a little better. So this is the bottom of my box. Now, if a tree was holding this up, it wouldn't go behind it where the box was in front of the tree, but the tree would go right up to the bottom of it. So it's like it's going through the floor of the house. So the way I'm going to do that is I'm going to draw the trunk of my tree. I'm going to start it right about the middle of there, and I'm going to kind of draw out. It's going to start even, and then it's going to kind of flare out at the bottom where the roots are. Then right here at the top, because a tree is round, I'm going to draw a curve to show how the tree is kind of rounded and going through the house. And then this is where having an eraser is also going to be really important, is I want to erase where that tree is overlapping the house as well as my horizon line, because that's in front of the horizon line. The horizon line wouldn't go through the middle of it. And then I'm going to kind of finish off the bottom down here where I have the roots coming in. I'm going to kind of give it jagged. You could make it smooth and just rounded at the bottom. That is your artist choice, how you kind of want the bottom of your tree to go. Next, and guys, always remember, you can pause this as many times as you need as I'm going through with this. So don't worry if I'm going too fast, just pause it, finish that step, and then hit play again. So now I'm going to come do kind of where the tree is coming up out of the top. So some of the branches that are kind of coming up through the top of my house. So to do that, I like to, when I'm creating branches, I create what are called Y's and V's for the branches. So just like a letter. So if my tree was coming up here, it kind of start curving and branching out. And I might even have some branches that are coming out of the side of my house here, or I might just draw them where they're coming out of the top. So I'm going to kind of draw one that's coming out of the side here. So what I'm going to do is kind of like I did the trunk. I'm going to draw it where it starts together and then it Y's or it spreads out. So that's my Y right there, kind of like I created. And I would create a little curve again where it would kind of a hole would be cut on the side of the house so that branch could spread out. And then I'm going to draw my V right in the middle of the Y. And that is how the branches kind of grow and keep spreading out. And I can continue doing that until I've really filled my space. So I would go from the end of there and I kind of spread it. I'd Y it out again. And then I do another V. And as they kind of goes out, your branches are going to get a little skinnier and smaller, kind of either until they go off the side of the page or until they kind of grow to a smaller point right there. And if like this looks kind of funny because it's all smooth here, you could always add another branch coming off of that as well. So you guys just go through and we're going to kind of fill. And I would try and keep your tree kind of balanced where you're going to have branches kind of coming off of this side, out of the top, and then probably off the other side. Otherwise, your tree might look like it's going to tip over. And my suggestion always is keep those lines really light and sketchy. So kind of how I'm doing these like shorter, skinny kind of lines here. That's going to help your tree kind of stay even. So I've got my one branch here. I'm going to erase where it overlaps the side of the house because this tree is in front. So I shouldn't be able to see the house through it unless you're making like a glass tree or something like that. Then I'm going to do some branches coming out of the top as well. And some of these might kind of overlap. So I'm going to draw a really big Y, like that's the whole Y right there. And then start doing my V's kind of coming out this way. And then my branches are kind of overlapping there where some of my branches are kind of running into my others. And these top ones may kind of go off the top of the paper a little more than some of your other ones, and that's all right. And I'm just going to kind of keep filling it up until I've drawn as many branches as I want, until my paper is really as full as I want it to be and it looks nice and balanced. So that might be more for some people, that might be less. You might have some more coming off this side. I'm going to kind of have a branch like it's coming out from behind the house right now. I'm not going to have another one that comes through the middle of it. So this one's going to come out kind of more like it's coming out of the back of the house instead of right at the front again. But you're just going to keep branching out until your space is kind of as full as you would like it to be. And then depending on your season, you may want to add leaves to this. You might make them green leaves. If it's fall, you might want to make like brown leaves or red, orange leaves, that kind of thing. So that's kind of up to your season, how you want to do that. If you want flowers on your trees, whatever else. So once you have created your treehouse, this is where we're going to stop for today. Now, this is just the basic. We have the house, we have the tree. Next week, we're going to get into how we're going to go through and add things like doors and windows and ladders and all of those other important details that we need to really make this picture exciting and really look great. So this is just our first day. Please save this, put it somewhere safe because I do not want you to have to start over. And do remember, guys, this artwork is going to be one of your choices that you can make if you want to put a piece in the art show for this year. So really focus on this piece because I think it can look really amazing when we're done.